The rain came without warning. One moment, the mountain road was quiet. The next, the sky opened, and water fell in silver sheets that turned the dirt to mud. Era Davin clutched her bread basket tight against her chest and ran, her worn shoes sinking deeper with every step. "Come on, Era," she whispered to herself. "Just a bit farther." The 3 loaves inside were all she had to earn coins that day. If she didn't deliver them to Thornvale Castle before nightfall, she and her grandmother would go hungry. The thought of her grandmother's thin, trembling hands gave her strength. Lightning ripped through the sky. For a moment, the dark shape of the castle appeared against the mountain, tall, sharp, and black as if carved from shadow. People in her village said it was cursed. They said no light ever stayed lit there for long. They said the prince inside had not woken in 100 years. Era told herself she didn't believe stories. She believed in bread, in work, and in making it home before dark. Still, her heart pounded harder as she reached the iron gates. They loomed high above her, the metal cold and wet under her hands. She pushed, and to her surprise, the gate creaked open. "Hello," she called, stepping into the courtyard. "It's Era. From the village bakery. I brought your order." Only rain answered her. The place seemed empty, the air thick with silence. Thunder cracked again, closer this time. She ducked under a stone archway and pressed herself against the wall. Her shawl was soaked through, her hair plastered to her face. "Just wait until the storm passes," she told herself. "Then go to the kitchen door. Someone will come." But no one came. The corridors beyond the arch were dim, lined with tall candles that flickered weakly in the draft. She knew she shouldn't enter, but standing still in the freezing rain wasn't an option. So she stepped inside. The hall smelled of dust and something older, something like dried flowers and forgotten time. Her footsteps echoed softly on the marble floor. Paintings lined the walls, old kings with eyes that followed her, and a woman with silver hair staring down as if she knew Era's name. She walked slowly, her basket clutched tight, until she heard it. A sound. Faint. Steady. Like a heartbeat. Era froze. It came from behind a heavy wooden door on her left. She swallowed hard. "Don't be stupid," she whispered. "Deliver the bread and leave." But her feet moved anyway. The door was slightly open. She nudged it wider and gasped. Inside was a vast, cold room lit by the weak glow of dying candles. In the center stood a canopy bed draped in dark velvet. A man lay motionless upon it, young, pale, and still as marble. His chest barely moved. Era's breath caught. "The sleeping prince," she whispered. She stepped closer, drawn by something she couldn't explain. His face looked peaceful, but not empty, more like someone trapped inside a long dream. His hair, black as ink, framed skin so pale it almost glowed in the candlelight. A faint shimmer traced his veins, dark and silver like frost on stone. "Can you really be alive?" she murmured. She reached out slowly, just to feel for a pulse, the way her grandmother had taught her. Her fingers brushed his wrist. A heartbeat. Weak, but there. Era's eyes widened. She pressed her fingers again. Thump. Thump. It grew stronger. She pulled her hand back in fright, nearly dropping her basket. The prince's chest rose with a deep breath, his lips parting slightly. A tremor ran through his body, as though something ancient had just been stirred awake. "Oh no," she whispered. "What did I do?" The door slammed open behind her. A tall man stood in the doorway, his black cloak soaked from the storm. His face was sharp, proud, and cold as winter. His eyes, grey like thunderclouds, locked onto her. "What have you done?" he demanded. Era's words tangled in her throat. I didn't mean to. I was only the storm." He strode into the room, his boots silent on the stone. He didn't look at her again, his gaze was fixed on the man in the bed. "Draven," he said softly, almost a plea. A heartbeat echoed again in the quiet. The stranger turned sharply toward the hall. "Guards. Physician." His voice thundered through the corridor. Within moments, several figures rushed in, men in dark armor, and an old healer carrying a case of instruments. The old man hurried to the bedside, pressing fingers to the prince's neck. "By the gods," he breathed. His pulse, it's stronger. Era stepped back until she hit the wall. The tall man turned toward her at last, and now she understood. His presence filled the room with command. The way the guards bowed to him, the way no one dared speak his name. "My lord," she stammered. "I didn't know." He studied her with eyes like storms barely held in check. "Who are you?" "Era Davin, sir. I deliver bread." "I didn't mean." "You touched him." "It wasn't a question." Yes, but only to check if he was still alive." The man's expression darkened. "You will remain here," he said, his voice low and final. "Until I understand what you've done." He turned to his men. "Take her to the east guest chamber. Guard the door." Era's stomach twisted. "Please, I didn't." "Enough," he said sharply. "You woke what 100 years of magic could not. I don't know whether to thank you or fear you." As she was led away, she glanced back one last time. The pale prince's chest rose and fell with slow, steady breaths. His fingers twitched on the bedsheets, like he was trying to reach for something or someone. For her. Era didn't sleep that night. The guest chamber they gave her was larger than her entire cottage. Silk curtains, polished mirrors, a bed so soft she sank into it like water. But she couldn't rest. Every shadow in the room seemed to watch her. Somewhere in the distance, thunder still rolled through the mountains. At dawn, a knock came. "The Lord requests your presence," a maid said, her tone stiff. Era followed down a maze of corridors until they reached a high-ceilinged room filled with books and candlelight. The tall man from before, Lord Aldrin Thorne, stood beside the sleeping prince, speaking quietly with the grey-haired physician. He turned as she entered. "You kept me waiting, girl," he said, though his tone was calmer now. "Tired, perhaps. Come closer." Era obeyed hesitantly. Her eyes flicked to the prince, to Draven. His face looked less lifeless now, a faint color blooming under his skin. "What did you do last night?" Aldrin asked. "I don't know," she said. "I only touched him." "Show me." Her breath caught. "Show you?" "Touch him again." She looked from the prince to the lord. "What if it hurts him?" "Then we'll know it's real," he said simply. The physician stepped aside. Era's hands trembled as she reached for the prince again. She placed her palm lightly against his wrist. Immediately, the air shifted. The faint hum returned like the sound of a heartbeat echoing through her fingers. Draven's breathing deepened. His chest rose, steady and strong. The candle flames around them flickered toward her as if drawn by the pulse. The physician gasped. "Incredible. His body responds to her presence." Era pulled back in fright, her heart racing. "What's happening?" Aldrin's eyes narrowed. "That is what I intend to find out." He gestured to the physician, who hurried to fetch a small silver instrument. "We will test her blood." "My blood?" Era backed away. "Why?" "Because nothing in this world happens without reason," Aldrin said. "And you, girl, are a reason I do not yet understand." The physician stepped forward gently. "Only a drop," he said. "It won't hurt." But as he reached for a small blade, his sleeve brushed against a broken glass vial. The sharp edge caught Era's palm, and she flinched. Blood spilled, bright red, shimmering faintly in the candlelight. It dripped onto the open page of a dusty old book on the table. The ink beneath the drops began to move. Era gasped. The letters twisted and rearranged themselves until new words appeared across the parchment, glowing silver like moonlight. Lord Aldrin's face went pale. "What does it say?" Era whispered. He read aloud, his voice barely above a murmur. "The child of grief returns. She carries both the wound and the cure." The physician's eyes widened. "My lord, her blood, it's alive with the same energy as the curse." Aldrin turned toward Era. "Your blood carries the mark of ancient magic," he said quietly. "The same magic that damned my son." Era shook her head. "No. That's not possible. I'm just a baker's girl." "Your name?" he demanded. "Your mother's family." "I don't know. My parents died when I was small. My grandmother raised me." "What do you know of her?" "Nothing much. She never talks about where we came from. She just says the past is better left buried." Aldrin's expression hardened. The past never stays buried in this house. He turned away, walking to the window. Rain still streaked the glass like silver veins. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter. My son, Draven, has slept for a century. The curse began with a woman named Seraphine Vale, a healer betrayed by my ancestor. Before she died, she swore that every thorn born after him would sleep until grief itself returned to wake them. He looked back at Era. And now, a girl appears, during the blood moon, carrying her blood in her veins. Era's lips parted in disbelief. You think I'm her? Not her, he said. But hers. The room felt suddenly smaller. The air thick, hard to breathe. Era wrapped her hand in a piece of cloth, trying to hide the faint shimmer that still glowed beneath her skin. I don't have magic, she whispered. I bake bread. I clean floors. Aldrin's gaze softened just slightly, the smallest crack in his armor. And yet, he said, you woke the dead. They stood in silence. Only the steady rhythm of Draven's breathing filled the room. Finally, the physician cleared his throat. My lord, the boy grows stronger by the hour. Whatever binds them, it's working. Aldrin nodded slowly. Then she stays. Era's heart skipped. What? You will remain in Thornvale until the curse is broken, he said. Whether by fate or by force. I can't. My grandmother, she'll think I'm dead. I'll send word that you are safe. Safe? She laughed bitterly. I'm a prisoner. The corner of his mouth twitched. A protected one. Her anger flared despite her fear. You can't keep me here. I can, he said quietly, and I will. My son's life depends on you. Era turned to leave, but two guards stepped in front of the door. Aldrin's voice stopped her. You should know something before you fight me, girl. She faced him, eyes burning. He nodded toward the bed. If you leave, he dies. The words hit her like a blade. She looked at Draven, lying so still yet breathing, alive because of her. The thought of that heartbeat stopping again made her chest ache. You don't even know me, she whispered. Aldrin's eyes softened again, just barely. Perhaps not, he said. But fate does. And it rarely makes mistakes. That night, when the castle fell silent, Era sat by the window of her room, staring at the storm breaking over the mountains. The rain had stopped, but thunder still rumbled far away. She pressed her bandaged hand to her chest, feeling the faint pulse beneath her skin. Somewhere in the castle, she knew he was breathing, the prince with the silver veins. And somehow, she knew she was the reason why. What did I wake? She whispered to the night, and what will it cost me? Era woke to sunlight cutting through heavy curtains, slicing across the marble floor like blades of gold. For a moment she forgot where she was until she saw the high ceilings, the velvet drapes, and the iron door still guarded by a soldier outside. The memory of last night rushed back, the thunder, the heartbeat, the vampire lord's grey eyes, the glowing blood. She sat up slowly. Her hand still throbbed from the cut. When she unwrapped the bandage, she gasped. Faint veins of silver light glowed beneath her skin, thin as spider silk, branching from the wound up toward her wrist. The glow pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. Before she could process it, a soft knock came at the door. A young maid entered, carrying a tray of food. She didn't meet Era's eyes. His lordship requests your presence after breakfast. His lordship, Era echoed under her breath. How nice of him to make requests after locking me up. The maid gave no answer, only set down the tray bread, fruit, and water and left. Era ate mechanically, her stomach tight but empty. When she finally followed the guard down the corridor, she tried to memorize the turns, counting doors and windows. Every hallway looked the same endless grey stone and shadow. They reached the great hall. Lord Aldrin stood near the window, his back to her, sunlight haloing his black cloak. Beside him, the old physician Oren was busy sorting bottles of colored liquids on a long table. You slept, Aldrin said without turning. I tried, Era replied. Hard to rest when I'm a prisoner. You are not a prisoner, he said calmly. You are a guest whose purpose is yet to be understood. Era crossed her arms. Then let me go, and you'll understand that my purpose is baking bread, not waking cursed princes. That earned a faint sound, the ghost of a laugh. Stubborn, Aldrin murmured. You remind me of her. Era frowned. Of who? Seraphine Vale, he said softly, finally turning to face her. The witch whose blood runs through your veins. I told you, I'm not a witch. Then explain this. He gestured to her bandaged hand. Era hesitated, then unwrapped it. The silver light glimmered faintly in the morning sun. Oren leaned forward, fascinated. Remarkable. The veins carry a residue of enchantment, not active magic, but inherited essence. Inherited, Era repeated numbly. From someone dead for 100 years. Aldrin's voice was quiet. Blood remembers what the mind forgets. Era shook her head. I don't want any of this. I want to go home. He took a step closer. If you walk out of this castle, my son dies. Are you willing to carry that? She looked up at him, this tall, cold man who spoke like he commanded storms, and saw something flicker in his eyes. Desperation. Guilt. Fear. What if I hurt him instead? She whispered. What if I make it worse? Aldrin's expression softened just slightly. Then you will have done more than anyone else has dared. You will have tried. She said nothing. Silence hung between them, heavy and electric. Finally, Oren cleared his throat. My lord, we should continue the observation. Aldrin nodded. Bring her. They led Era back to the prince's chamber. She tried not to look at the body on the bed, but her gaze found him anyway. Draven Thorn. The sleeping prince. He looked more alive than before. His lips had regained a faint color. His hair, dark as midnight, spilled across the pillow like ink. His chest rose and fell in slow, steady rhythm. Era swallowed. What do you want me to do? Sit, Aldrin said simply. And touch his hand. Era hesitated, then obeyed. Her fingers trembled as they brushed his cold skin. Immediately, she felt it, that strange hum, like two heartbeats aligning. The silver in her veins pulsed brighter. Draven's breathing deepened. Oren scribbled furiously in his notes. Aldrin watched her, his voice low. It's reacting to you. Maybe it's coincidence, Era said, trying to pull back. Maybe it's. Draven's fingers twitched, catching hers before she could move away. Era froze. His hand was still weak but warmer now. His lips parted as though he were trying to speak. A soft sound escaped, not a word, more a sigh carried from somewhere far away. Impossible, Oren whispered. His responding consciously. Era's heart hammered. His holding my hand. Aldrin stepped forward, eyes sharp. Stay with him. Don't let go. But. Do it. She stayed. The prince's grip grew firmer. A faint tremor ran through his body. Then, in a voice rough and low, he whispered a single word. Light. Era's breath caught. What did he say? Oren looked stunned. He spoke. Draven's lips barely moved again, forming shapes too faint to catch. His eyes fluttered but didn't open. Then he stilled. The silence that followed felt alive. Era's hand shook as she gently withdrew. He said. Light. What does that mean? Aldrin exhaled slowly. That after a century of darkness, he remembers what light feels like. He turned to the guards. Ensure she eats. She'll stay in the prince's chamber from now on. Era looked up, startled. All day? All day, Aldrin said. Until he wakes. She wanted to argue, but Draven's face stopped her. There was something peaceful in his expression now, something that hadn't been there before. Maybe, she thought, just maybe, she was meant to be here after all. That night, when everyone else had gone, Era sat by his bedside. The castle was silent except for the crackle of candles. She looked at the man who hadn't aged in 100 years and whispered, Who are you really? And what am I to you? The prince didn't answer, but somewhere deep within the stillness, she thought she heard his heartbeat answer for him. Days passed. The rain stopped. Sunlight returned to the mountains, but not to Thornvale Castle. Every morning, Era was brought to the prince's chamber. Every night, she was escorted back to her guarded room. The routine felt like a strange dream she couldn't wake from. Each day, Draven's color improved. His chest rose more steadily. His fingers sometimes moved when she spoke. When she read aloud from the castle's dusty books, the air in the room seemed warmer. But outside those walls, things were changing. The servants stopped meeting her eyes. Conversations fell silent when she entered. She heard the whispers, witch, curseborn, blood thief. Even the guards started to keep their distance. One afternoon, while Era sat reading beside the bed, a voice hissed behind her. "He'll die if you keep touching him." She turned sharply. A woman stood in the doorway, tall, elegant, dressed in burgundy velvet. Her lips curved in a smile that wasn't kind. "Who are you?" Era asked. "Lady Myrenne," the woman said smoothly. "Advisor to Lord Aldrin. And unlike you, I belong here." "I don't want to be here," Era said quietly. "I didn't ask for this." Myrenne stepped closer, her perfume sharp and cold. "Then leave. Spare us all the trouble." Era's eyes flicked toward the bed. "If I leave, he dies. Then perhaps that's mercy." Myrenne's voice dripped venom. "He's been a corpse for a century. What good comes from waking ghosts?" She turned to go, but paused at the door. "You think the Lord protects you because he pities you. He doesn't. You're a tool, and tools break when they're no longer needed." The door closed behind her. Era sat in silence for a long time. When she finally looked at Draven again, her chest ached. "Maybe she's right," she whispered. "Maybe this isn't helping you." But his hand twitched faintly, like a silent denial. That night, she dreamed again. Fire. Screams. A woman bound to a stake, her dark hair whipping in the wind, her eyes full of fury. "You chose the crown over me," the woman cried. "Then may your children choose sorrow over life." Era woke with a gasp, sweat slick on her skin. The silver marks on her hand glowed brighter than ever. She pressed her palm against her chest, trembling. "Seraphine," she whispered. The name came without thought. "That's your name, isn't it?" The faint pulse under her skin seemed to answer yes. When the maid came that morning, Era asked, "Why did the prince fall asleep? What really happened?" The maid looked startled. "You shouldn't ask such things." "I'm asking anyway." The maid hesitated, then whispered, "They say the Thorn family angered a witch. A woman who loved a king that never loved her back. She cursed his bloodline. Said grief would haunt their children until love itself forgave her." "Forgive her?" Era repeated. The maid crossed herself nervously. "It's only a story." But Era knew better. She could feel that story running in her veins. That afternoon, when Aldrin came to check on his son, Era confronted him. "You never told me what your family did to her." His expression hardened. "What I owe you is silence, not history. I have a right to know if I'm part of it." He stared at her for a long moment, then sighed. "A century ago, my great-grandfather, King Alaric Thorn, loved a healer named Seraphine Vale. The court called her a witch. When they discovered their affair, the nobles demanded her death. He didn't stop them." Era's throat tightened. "He let her die. He watched from the castle walls." The words hung heavy in the air. "She cursed his blood," Aldrin said quietly. "Said no thorn would ever escape the grief he gave her. That love itself would turn to sleep endless, unending." He looked at Draven, eyes full of something between shame and hope. "I've spent half my life searching for a cure. And then you appear, her blood reborn. The circle closing." Era's voice trembled. "So what now? You use me to undo what your family did. If that is the price of redemption, then yes." She stepped back. "You talk about redemption, but what about forgiveness?" Aldrin's expression darkened. "Forgiveness is a luxury for the living. The dead demand balance." Era shook her head. "Then you'll never break this curse." She left before he could answer. That night, she sat beside Draven again, her hand over his. "Your father doesn't understand," she whispered. "Neither do I. But I feel like you're the only one who can." His breathing deepened, slow and rhythmic. She thought she heard him whisper again, soft, broken, almost lost to the air. "Don't stop." Her chest ached. "You can hear me." The faintest twitch of his fingers answered her. She smiled through tears. "Then I won't." Outside, lightning flared once more over the mountains, painting the sky blood-red. Somewhere deep in Thornvale's heart, old magic stirred, not with hate this time, but with the first fragile spark of hope. The storm had passed, but Thornvale Castle remained heavy with clouds. Even in daylight, its halls felt like twilight, the air thick with whispers, candlelight, and the echo of old grief. Era sat beside the prince again, her fingers wrapped around his cold hand. She had long stopped counting the hours. Time moved differently here, marked only by the slow rhythm of Draven's breathing and the flicker of candles burning low. She had spoken to him for days about her village, her grandmother, the river where children played, the smell of bread rising in the oven. Sometimes it felt foolish, talking to someone who couldn't answer. But sometimes, she could swear he listened. Today, she brought a book from the library. Its pages smelled of dust and lavender. "It's called The Ballad of the Sleeping Star," she told him. "Seems fitting, don't you think?" She began to read aloud. Her voice was soft, uncertain at first, but steadied as she lost herself in the words. It was a story of a lonely star who fell in love with the moon, though they could never touch. When she reached the last verse about the star's light guiding the moon home, Draven's fingers twitched. Era froze. Then it happened again, a subtle but certain movement. His fingers closed around hers, weak but real. "Draven," she whispered. His lips parted. A breath escaped, rough and strained, and then, barely audible, a word. "Era." The sound hit her like lightning. He said her name. She leaned closer, heart racing. "I'm here," she whispered. "Can you hear me?" His eyelids fluttered. She saw the faintest glimpse of silver gray beneath them, eyes that had not opened in 100 years. "Light," he murmured again, voice cracked from disuse. "You are light." Tears filled Era's eyes. She squeezed his hand gently. "Then wake up, Draven. Please." The door opened suddenly. Aldrin and physician Oren rushed in, followed by 2 guards. Aldrin's gaze locked on his son, the faint motion of his lips, the twitch of his hand in Era's. "What's happening?" he demanded. "He spoke," Era said, her voice trembling. "He said my name." Oren leaned over the prince, checking his pulse, his breath. "His heartbeat is steady. Stronger than ever. My lord, he's fighting the sleep." Aldrin turned to Era. "What did you do?" "Nothing," she said. "I was just reading." He studied her, eyes unreadable. "Then keep reading." So she did. Every day, Era read to him stories of lost kingdoms, poems about the stars, even silly folk tales from her village. The prince's responses grew stronger. A flicker of his lips here, a faint movement of his eyes there. Once, when she laughed softly, he almost smiled. But the more Draven stirred, the more restless the castle became. The servants whispered of impossible things. The nobles muttered that the curse was unraveling. And Lady Miren's eyes followed Era wherever she went, sharp as knives. One evening, as Era left the chamber, Miren's voice floated from the shadows. "Do you think this will end well for you?" Era turned, startled. The older woman stepped from the corridor's gloom, her burgundy gown glinting in torchlight. "You're not supposed to be here," Era said. "Neither were you," Miren replied. "Yet here we are, both drawn to the same ghost." Era frowned. "Ghost?" "Prince Draven," Miren said smoothly. "He is not meant for the living, child. The curse binds him to grief. When it breaks, something must pay the price." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that you will." Miren's smile was thin. "Blood always balances blood." Era's pulse quickened. She stepped back. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Oh, I do," the lady purred. "And so does Lord Aldrin. Ask him who really killed the witch Seraphine. Ask him whose blade cut her chains before the fire took her." Era's throat tightened. "You're lying." "Am I?" Miren's voice was almost kind. "You'll find the truth in the East Wing. If you have the courage." Before Era could reply, the woman was gone. That night, Era couldn't sleep. Miren's words echoed in her mind. When the castle grew silent, she rose from bed, wrapped a cloak around herself, and slipped into the corridors. The East Wing had been sealed off, hidden behind a faded tapestry showing the Thorn family crest. She pushed it aside and found a door. It opened with a groan, spilling a cloud of dust into the air. Inside lay ruins, broken furniture, cracked mirrors, portraits with faces scratched out. But at the far end stood a painting untouched by time, a woman with dark hair and eyes like storm clouds. Her face was hauntingly familiar. Era stepped closer. Beneath the portrait, carved into the stone mantel, were words. Seraphine Vale, beloved and betrayed. She reached out, her fingertips brushing the carved letters, and the world shifted. A vision flooded her mind. Flames. Screams. A man standing on a balcony above the fire, cold, silent, watching. Seraphine's voice rose through the smoke. You chose your crown over my heart. Then let your bloodline choose sorrow over love. The vision broke. Era stumbled back, gasping. Behind her, a voice said quietly, you shouldn't be here. She turned. Lord Aldrin stood in the doorway, candlelight painting his face in shadow. I didn't mean to, she began. This was her room, he said, stepping inside. Seraphine's. Era looked at the portrait again. She was beautiful. She was brilliant, Aldrin said softly. A healer. She saved hundreds when plague struck the valley. My great-grandfather fell in love with her. And then betrayed her, Era finished. Aldrin's jaw tightened. Yes. The nobles demanded her death. He chose his throne instead of her. She cursed him with her dying breath. And now her blood lives in me, Era whispered. Yes, Aldrin said. And the question is, did she send you here to save my son, or to finish what she began? Era stared at him, the weight of the curse pressing down on her chest. Maybe both. When Era returned to the prince's chamber the next morning, her hands still shook from what she'd seen. She told no one about the vision, not even Aldrin. But something had changed inside her. She felt the curse now alive, pulsing faintly whenever she drew near Draven. As she took her seat beside his bed, she whispered, I saw her last night. Seraphine. She was angry, but she wasn't evil. She just wanted to be loved. Draven's hand twitched slightly. The faintest smile touched his lips. You understand me, don't you? She said softly. You feel her too. He didn't move again, but the air felt warmer, gentler, as if her words were reaching somewhere deep. She began to sing, an old lullaby her grandmother used to hum when Era was small. Her voice trembled at first, then grew stronger. Sleep now, little one, the night will fade away. Morning comes to guide the lost, and light will find the way. The song drifted through the chamber. When it ended, Era saw a tear glisten at the corner of Draven's eye. Her own tears followed. You can hear me, she whispered. You really can. Behind her, the door opened quietly. Aldrin stood in the doorway, still and silent. Era startled. I didn't hear you. Don't stop, he said. That song, his mother used to sing it before the curse. Era's breath caught. His mother. She died when he was a child. The curse took him soon after. I had forgotten the sound until now. His voice cracked slightly. Thank you. She said nothing, just turned back to Draven and brushed a tear from his cheek. Days passed. Draven's strength grew. His eyes moved beneath his lids more often, his chest rose with deeper breaths. He seemed almost awake. But the rest of the castle was restless. The nobles were furious that a village girl and a witch's descendant was touching royal blood. One evening, when Era went to fetch fresh towels, she heard voices in the council room. She's bewitched them both, Lady Maren said sharply. The boy's life, the Lord's mind all twisted around her little finger. She is dangerous, another noble agreed. You saw her blood. It glows. Exactly, Maren said. It's poison. She's feeding on them. She stays, Aldrin's voice cut through, hard and cold. My son lives because of her. Or because of her curse, Maren snapped. Don't you see? The witch is winning again. Silence followed, thick as smoke. Then Aldrin said, low and final, if any harm comes to her, I will see the one responsible burned where they stand. Era's chest tightened. She hurried away before they could see her. That night, she sat again beside Draven, speaking softly, her voice trembling. They think I'm hurting you. They think I'm dangerous. His fingers twitched again. She laughed bitterly. Maybe I am. Then, slowly, his hand moved, not a twitch this time, but a deliberate motion. His fingers curled around hers. Era's heart leapt. Draven. His lips parted. A breath. A whisper. Era. She leaned close. I'm here. His voice was hoarse, broken, but real. Always, hear you. Her throat ached. You've been listening this whole time? Always, he breathed. His eyes fluttered and then, finally, opened. They were the color of twilight, deep silver gray fading to pale blue, ancient and sorrowful and beautiful. Era gasped. You're awake. He blinked slowly, his gaze locking on hers. Not a dream. No, she said, tears falling freely. Not a dream. He reached up weakly, his fingers brushing her cheek. You came for me. She took his hand in both of hers. I don't even know how. You were meant to, he murmured. You called me back. Before she could answer, the door burst open. Aldrin and Oren rushed in, stopping dead at the sight of Draven sitting upright. My son, Aldrin whispered. For a moment, the unshakable lord looked like a broken man finally whole again. He crossed the room in 3 long strides and fell to his knees beside the bed. Draven. Draven smiled faintly. Father. Aldrin gripped his hand, tears streaming down his face. Forgive me. Forgive all of us. Draven shook his head slightly. It's not forgiveness you need, he said softly. It's peace. Oren murmured a prayer under his breath, unable to believe what he was witnessing. Era stepped back, her heart still pounding. The silver marks on her hand glowed brighter than ever, pulsing in time with Draven's heartbeat. For the first time in a century, the air of Thornvale was awake. But as the candles flared, their flames bending toward her, Era knew the truth, this was only the beginning. Because somewhere deep beneath that miracle, the curse had stirred again. And it was watching. The sun rose over Thornvale for the first time in months without rain. Its weak light slipped through the castle's high windows and spilled over stone floors that had forgotten what warmth felt like. Servants whispered blessings as they moved through the halls. For the first time in a century, Prince Draven Thorn was awake. But Era could feel it, beneath the wonder, fear lingered like a shadow no light could burn away. Draven's recovery was slow. His legs trembled when he tried to stand, his voice, though stronger each day, still cracked when he spoke. Yet there was a kind of light around him, a quiet steadiness, like a man walking carefully through a dream he was afraid might end. He spent hours sitting by the window, staring out at the mountains beyond the valley. Sometimes, Era joined him in silence. Other times, he spoke in fragments. I remember the fire, he said once. The sky was red. I could hear voices, hers, and yours. Mine? Era asked softly. Draven nodded, gaze still distant. Your voice pulled me out of it. Every time the darkness tried to close, you were there, singing. Era's chest tightened. Then I'm glad I didn't stop. He turned to her then, his eyes clearer than before, deep gray with faint silver flecks. You sound like her. Who? The woman in the fire, he said. The one who cursed us. Era froze. Seraphine. Draven nodded slowly. She said I would sleep until her grief was forgiven. He looked at her hand, where faint silver veins still glowed beneath the skin. And you carry her blood. Era didn't answer. She didn't need to. The mark on her wrist said enough. That evening, Lord Aldrin called her to his private chamber. The walls were lined with books, maps, and paintings, a scholar's study, not a warrior's den. But the man who stood there was both. You've done what no magic could, he said without preamble. My son breathes because of you. Era stood straight, her hands clasped tight. Then you'll let me go. Aldrin's expression didn't change. Not yet. I've done what you wanted, she snapped. He's awake. He studied her quietly. Awake, yes. But not free. The curse is not gone. Era faltered. Then what more do you want from me? Aldrin walked to the table and unrolled a piece of parchment. It was a family tree, drawn in intricate ink, the thorn line stretching back centuries. At the bottom, written in neat script, was Draven's name. But beside it was another branch, faint, half erased. A name in old, curling letters, Seraphine Vale. This was written by my ancestor's own hand, Aldrin said. He recorded every union, every heir, even the one he betrayed. Era's eyes widened. He admitted her? Aldrin nodded. Because she bore his child. Hidden before her execution. Era felt the room tilt. Then, that child's blood flows in both our veins, Aldrin said quietly. We are not enemies, Era. We are the same family, divided by sin and silence. She shook her head. That's not possible. You've seen your blood glow, Aldrin said. You've seen what it does to my son. Fate has brought us here to finish what began a century ago. Era's voice trembled. Finish? How? By undoing the curse at its source. The blood must be united again. Her stomach turned cold. What does that mean? It means, Aldrin said, stepping closer, you must stay beside him. As long as you breathe, the curse weakens. Together, you can break it. Era stared at him. And if I refuse? Then he dies. And you carry the guilt of ending what you began. She looked away, anger and fear twisting inside her. You're using me. Aldrin's voice softened. I'm asking you. Era met his eyes and saw not just command, but desperation. For all his coldness, the vampire lord was just a father begging to save his son. Finally, she whispered, fine. I'll stay. Aldrin bowed his head slightly, not in triumph, but in weary gratitude. Then may the gods forgive us both. That night, when Era returned to Draven's chamber, he was awake, staring at the moon. You look tired, he said quietly. I am, she admitted. He smiled faintly. My father's doing. He thinks we can end the curse if we stay together. Draven's smile faded. And what do you think? Era hesitated. I think he's desperate. And I think he's right. Draven's gaze lingered on her face, gentle but sad. Then I'll keep waking. For you, if not for him. Her heart stuttered. Don't say things like that. Why not? Because I don't know what any of this means. Draven's hand reached for hers, slow and uncertain. His fingers brushed the silver glow on her wrist. Maybe we don't have to know, he whispered. Maybe we just feel. And for the first time, Era didn't pull away. The days grew longer. Era's presence in the castle changed everything. Draven's strength returned bit by bit. He walked the corridors now, though he leaned on her arm for support. His voice, once rough, now carried the quiet music of old nobility. The servants bowed to him again, though when they looked at Era, their eyes were full of suspicion. One morning, while Era helped him down a staircase, he stopped suddenly. His gaze was fixed on the stained glass windows above the chapel doors. The panels showed a woman surrounded by fire, her face turned upward in defiance. Beneath her, words written in old script. By love betrayed, by love restored. Draven's fingers tightened around Era's arm. That's her, he said. Seraphine. Era followed his gaze. Your ancestor built this. My father did, Draven said. He believed the curse would end if we remembered her suffering. He was wrong. It only grew stronger. They entered the chapel. Dust floated in golden beams of light. At the center stood an altar of black stone, cracked but beautiful. Era felt something stir deep within her, a pulse that wasn't hers. When she touched the stone, her blood warmed. Silver light bloomed faintly under her skin, spilling into the cracks like water into dry earth. Draven watched silently. You feel it, don't you? Yes, she whispered. It's like, something's calling me. He stepped closer. Maybe it's her. Era turned, her voice trembling. Then why does it hurt? Because grief always does, he said gently. That evening, she went to the castle library alone. The shelves were lined with books in languages she couldn't read. But one, bound in cracked leather, caught her eye, the Chronicles of the Vale Witch. Inside were fragments of Seraphine's diary, poems, spells, letters never sent. One passage was marked with blood-red ink. He said the crown must come before the heart. So I give him a crown of ash, and a heart that sleeps forever. When my blood returns, she will carry both curse and cure. Her mercy will be the end of me. Her love, The end of him. Era's hands shook. The book fell open to another page, a drawing of a sigil, a circle of thorns wrapped around a drop of silver blood. She traced it with her fingertip. The lines pulsed faintly beneath her touch. A whisper filled her mind, soft, familiar, a woman's voice carried on smoke. Child of my blood, will you forgive them? Or finish me? Era stumbled back, heart hammering. Who are you? The whisper came again, mournful but proud. I am what you will become, if you choose vengeance. Then silence. The next day, she found Draven waiting for her in the garden, the first time he had left the castle walls. The wind tugged gently at his dark hair. You shouldn't be out here, she said. It's cold. I've been colder, he said with a faint smile. Era sat beside him on the stone bench. I found her diary, she said. His expression darkened. What did it say? That her blood would return. That mercy or hate would decide everything. He looked away. And which will you choose? I don't know, she whispered. Every time I close my eyes, I see fire. I see what your family did to her. Draven's voice was low. They weren't my choices. I know, she said. But they're still your blood. He turned to her, eyes shining with pain. And yours. The words cut deeper than she expected. They sat in silence for a long while, the wind moving softly through the dead vines. Finally, Draven said, if we are both the children of grief, then maybe we can end it not with blood, but with forgiveness. Era shook her head. You make it sound easy. It isn't, he said. But it's the only thing that might save us. That night, Era dreamed again, not of fire this time, but of moonlight. She stood in a great hall, and before her was Seraphine herself, tall, proud, her dark hair crowned with silver thorns. You've seen their cruelty, the witch said. You've felt my pain. Why should you forgive them? Era's voice trembled. Because I'm tired of hating people I've never met. Seraphine tilted her head. And if forgiveness costs you everything? Era hesitated. Then I'll give it. The witch smiled, sad and soft. Then you may yet save him. When Era woke, the mark on her wrist glowed brighter than ever, and she felt both weaker and stronger, like something inside her had begun to change. In the days that followed, the bond between her and Draven deepened. They spoke easily now, laughter sometimes breaking through the castle's gloom. One evening, he caught her staring at the sunset through the high windows. What do you see? He asked. Freedom, she said quietly. Do you wish for it? Era smiled faintly. Don't you? I did, he said. But now I wish only to stay awake. Because of me? She asked, half teasing. He nodded. Because you remind me what living feels like. Era's heart ached. Then maybe that's why I'm here. He looked at her for a long time, something unspoken in his eyes. No, he said softly. You're here for something greater. Something neither of us understands yet. But even as he said it, the torches along the walls flickered as if the castle itself had heard and disapproved. The air grew cold, and the faint smell of smoke drifted through the corridor. Era's hand went to her wrist. The silver veins pulsed once, painfully bright. Somewhere deep in the stone, an ancient voice whispered, mercy or vengeance, child. Choose soon. And for the first time, Era wasn't sure which she would choose. The days after Era's dream of Seraphine passed in uneasy quiet. The castle, once a prison of silence, now seemed alive, breathing through her presence, humming beneath her feet. The walls whispered, the candles flickered when she entered, and the air shimmered faintly whenever her hand brushed Draven's. He grew stronger each day, though the curse still lingered in the faint silver veins beneath his skin. His laughter came more easily now, though his eyes still held that distant sadness of someone who had lived 100 years in darkness. They often walked through the old rose garden, a ruin of withered stems and tangled thorns. The flowers had long died, but Era liked the quiet. The world beyond the walls felt too loud, too alive for the fragile peace inside her. One afternoon, Draven stopped near a broken fountain. When I was a boy, this place was full of light, he said, crouching beside the cracked marble basin. The roses bloomed silver at night. My mother used to tell me the garden was enchanted. What happened? Era asked, brushing dust from the rim. The curse, he said simply. It drains life from everything. Even beauty. He looked up at her, his gaze warm. Until you came. She felt her cheeks flush. I'm not magic. Draven smiled faintly. Then why does the air warm when you laugh? Era shook her head, pretending not to hear the meaning behind his words. You should rest, Your Highness. He laughed softly. Call me Draven. Titles belong to ghosts. Then what are you? She asked. He looked at her for a long time, the wind tugging gently at his hair. Trying to be human again, he said at last. And failing beautifully. They sat beside the fountain, silence wrapping around them. The world outside the castle felt far away, almost unreal. Here, time stood still. Here, she could almost forget that she was the descendant of the woman who cursed his blood. Almost. Later that night, she found Aldrin waiting in the corridor outside her chamber. His expression was grim. You've grown close to him, he said without preamble. Era straightened. He's recovering. Isn't that what you wanted? You mistake healing for attachment, Aldrin said. The curse feeds on emotion. Love, grief, longing, each one binds you deeper to it. I can't stop caring for him, she said quietly. I'm not asking you to, Aldrin replied. I'm warning you. The stronger your bond, the stronger the curse will fight. Era hesitated. You mean it will fight me? Aldrin nodded. It already is. He left her there in silence. She stood for a long moment, her hand pressed to her chest where her heartbeat fluttered too fast. That night, her dreams were darker. She was standing before a mirror, but the reflection was not her own. It was Seraphine, eyes full of fire, her face marked with ash. You think love will save him, the witch hissed. It is love that damned us both. Era stumbled backward, but Seraphine reached through the mirror, her burning hand gripping Era's wrist. Every thorn must pay, she whispered. And every veil must choose. Era woke with a scream. The silver veins under her skin burned like molten light. She gasped, clutching her arm, her breath ragged. The mark pulsed in rhythm with a heartbeat not her own, Draven's. She ran. Draven's chamber door flew open. He was sitting upright, drenched in sweat, his hand gripping his chest. Era, he gasped. Something's wrong. I know, she said, rushing to his side. I felt it too. A dark pattern, black and silver, had spread up his neck like cracks in ice. His pulse thudded weakly beneath her fingers. The curse is angry, he said, voice strained. It's fighting back. Era pressed her glowing hand to his chest. Then it can fight me. A blinding flash filled the room. Draven cried out, and Era felt the energy drain from her body, pouring into him like light spilling into darkness. The black veins faded, but pain seared her skin. When it was over, she collapsed against him, trembling. Era. He caught her, his arms strong despite his exhaustion. You can't keep doing this. I'm fine, she lied. Her vision swam, her breath shallow. You're alive. That's all that matters. Draven held her closer. You're not fine. You're dying for me. She tried to pull away, but his voice stopped her. Why are you doing this? Because if I don't, she whispered, no one else will. Their eyes met, and in that moment, something unspoken passed between them, a thread of truth neither could deny anymore. He leaned closer, his voice barely a breath. You're not my healer, Era. You're my heart. Before she could answer, his lips met hers. The kiss was desperate, trembling, and filled with all the loneliness of a century. The silver light flared between them, weaving around their joined hands, binding them in a glow that pulsed like a living thing. When they broke apart, the air itself seemed to sigh. But outside, in the deep shadows of the corridor, unseen eyes watched. Lady Myrenne smiled, her lips curling in cruel satisfaction. So the witch loves her prince, she whispered. How convenient. By dawn, the castle was no longer quiet. Whispers spread faster than wildfire. Servants spoke of strange lights, of voices echoing through the night, of the sleeping prince and the cursed girl who had broken the world's oldest spell with a single kiss. Era avoided the stairs as she carried water to Draven's room. Her hands trembled, but not from fear, from memory. Every time she closed her eyes, She felt his lips again, warm against the cold that haunted her blood. But peace was short-lived. Lady Myrenne stood waiting inside the prince's chamber, her gown gleaming like spilled wine. "How sweet," she said, her voice dripping poison. "The savior returns to her patient." Era stopped cold. "What are you doing here?" Myrenne smiled. "Delivering a warning." Draven, sitting on the edge of his bed, frowned. "You shouldn't speak to her that way. She's not one of us," Myrenne said sharply. "She's the reason you're still cursed. Can't you feel it? She's tying you to her bloodline's sin." Era stiffened. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Oh, I do." Myrenne stepped closer. "Do you think it's coincidence that your curse began to stir the moment she arrived? That every time she heals you, she weakens herself instead?" "Enough," Draven said, rising. "Leave." But Myrenne didn't move. Her gaze locked on Era's glowing hand. "You're not healing him. You're feeding him your life. You're the sacrifice this curse demands." Era's breath caught. "That's not true." "Then explain why you're fading." Draven's eyes turned to her, alarmed. "What does she mean?" Era looked away. "It's nothing." "Era," he said firmly. "What did you do?" She stayed silent. Myrenne laughed softly. "She bleeds for you, my prince." "Quite literally." Draven's expression hardened. "Get out." Lady Myrenne's smile vanished. "You're blind, Draven. She carries your doom." She turned sharply, her voice echoing down the hall. "When the curse claims you both, remember I tried to warn you." The door slammed shut behind her. Silence fell. Draven reached for Era's hand. The silver veins shimmered faintly, pulsing faster than his heartbeat. "She's right, isn't she?" Era shook her head. "It doesn't matter." "It matters to me." She looked at him, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "If the curse takes one of us, let it be me." He gripped her shoulders. "Don't say that. It's the only way this ends," she whispered. "You were born into this curse, Draven. I was born to end it." He stared at her in disbelief, then anger. "You talk like your life doesn't matter." She smiled sadly. "Maybe it doesn't." Draven turned away, his hands shaking. "You think Seraphine wanted this? You think she wanted her blood to die for mine?" Era's voice was soft. "I think she wanted peace." He spun back toward her. "Then let's find another way." "There is no other way." The words hung between them, heavy and final. That night, Era couldn't rest. The mark on her wrist burned like fire. She wandered the corridors until she reached the east wing again. The portrait of Seraphine waited in the dark, her painted eyes gleaming like molten silver. "You lied to me," Era whispered. "You said mercy would save us. You didn't tell me mercy meant dying." The air shimmered. The painting's eyes seemed to move. "You speak as though death is loss," Seraphine's voice murmured from everywhere and nowhere. "Sometimes, it is the only gift left." Era's vision blurred. "You cursed them. You trapped them in grief." "I cursed him," the witch said. "And he cursed me. Our love became our punishment. Now you carry both. Then tell me how to end it." "End it." Seraphine's tone softened. "Child, you already know. The curse was born from betrayal. Only forgiveness can destroy it. But forgiveness demands blood." Era's heart sank. "Mine. Or his," Seraphine said. "The curse does not care who dies. Only that love is proven true." The voice faded. The painting was still again. Era sank to the floor, shaking. She didn't know how long she sat there until the sound of footsteps made her look up. Draven stood in the doorway, pale and silent. "I heard everything," he said. Tears spilled down her cheeks. "Draven." "No," he crossed the room, kneeling beside her. "You won't die for me. I won't let you." "You can't stop it," she whispered. "Watch me." The next day, Draven demanded an audience with his father. Lord Aldrin sat in the council chamber, his expression unreadable as his son entered. "You should be resting," he said. "I've rested enough," Draven replied coldly. "The curse will end. But not by her death." Aldrin frowned. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that if blood must be given, let it be mine." Era, standing behind him, shook her head. No. Aldrin's eyes widened. Draven, that's madness. Is it? Draven snapped. She's suffered enough for our family's sin. I'll not let her pay for our ancestors' crimes. Era stepped forward, her voice breaking. Draven, please. He turned to her, his gaze full of pain and fierce tenderness. You said forgiveness ends this curse. Then let me be the one who forgives. Let me prove love is stronger than vengeance. She could barely breathe. And what if it kills you? He smiled faintly. Then at least I'll die free. Before anyone could stop him, he drew a dagger from the table and sliced his palm. Silver blood welled up, bright as liquid light. He caught Era's wrist and pressed their wounds together. A surge of energy burst between them. The air turned white-hot, the floor shaking beneath their feet. Light poured from their joined hands, spiraling around them, weaving like threads of silver fire. Era screamed. Draven, stop. But he only held her tighter. It's all right, he whispered. I can feel it breaking. The light intensified. Candles shattered, glass cracked, wind howled through the halls. Aldrin shouted for the guards, but none could come near, the power burning between them was too great. And then, as suddenly as it began, it ended. Draven collapsed. Era caught him, sobbing. His chest was still. The silver veins faded from his skin, leaving him pale but peaceful. No, she whispered. No, no, no. She pressed her glowing hand to his heart, forcing her energy into him, screaming his name. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, a heartbeat. Weak, but real. His eyes fluttered open. You, stubborn girl, he murmured. Relief flooded her. She laughed through her tears. You're alive. He smiled faintly. Because of you. Aldrin fell to his knees, tears streaking his face. The curse. Era looked down at her wrist. The mark had dimmed, but not vanished. It's weaker, she said softly. But not gone. Draven's hand found hers again. Then we finish it, together. The light around them faded, leaving only the quiet sound of their heartbeats, in perfect rhythm at last. But deep beneath the castle, in the roots of stone and blood, something ancient stirred, watching, waiting, whispering. Forgiveness is not the end. It is the beginning of another choice. And though Era didn't yet know it, the hardest part was still to come. The castle did not sleep after Draven's collapse. The echoes of what had happened, light tearing through the halls, the prince's body crumpling into Era's arms, still trembled in every wall. Servants whispered prayers and curses alike, and even the torches burned unsteadily, as if afraid to breathe. Draven was alive, but weaker than before. He lay propped against pillows, his eyes open but heavy with exhaustion. Era hadn't left his side for 2 days. Her hand rarely left his. The silver marks that once pulsed on her wrist had faded to faint scars. On the 3rd evening, when the storms finally broke outside, he spoke. You should rest, he said softly. Era gave a small laugh that sounded almost like a sob. You first. He smiled faintly, the expression tugging at her heart. Stubborn, as always. You almost died, she said, the words trembling. You did die for a moment. I thought, she stopped herself, but her voice cracked anyway. I thought I'd lost you. He reached out, brushing his thumb against her cheek. You can't lose what's bound to you. Don't say things like that, she whispered. Why not? His tone was gentle, but his gaze was steady. We both know this isn't over. If the curse isn't broken, it will take one of us. We should face that together. She shook her head. I'm not talking about dying, Draven. I'm talking about living after. He hesitated, eyes softening. You think we can? I have to believe it, she said. Because if I don't, then everything we've done, everything Seraphine suffered, was for nothing. He nodded slowly. Then let's make it real. A promise. A promise, she repeated. He sat up, wincing, but determination burned in his voice. If one of us falls before this curse ends, the other must finish what we began. No hesitation. No fear. Era stared at him. That's not a promise, that's a curse of its own. It's a pact, Draven said. And it's the only way either of us survives. Silence stretched between them. Outside, thunder rolled low across the valley. Finally, she took his hand. Fine, she said. But only on one condition. He smiled faintly. Which is? That you don't die again. He laughed, a sound that filled the chamber with life. I'll do my best. She held out her palm. Say it then. A pact. Draven took her hand, his fingers warm and sure. I, Draven Thorn, swear that I will break this curse and protect you, even beyond death. Era swallowed hard. I, Era Vale, swear that I will see this curse ended, no matter what it takes. Their joined hands glowed faintly, silver and gold intertwining. The air shimmered around them, as though the castle itself acknowledged their vow. When the light faded, neither moved. For a long time, they just looked at each other, their breathing sinking in quiet rhythm. Draven's voice was barely a whisper. You said you believed in living after all this. So do I. But I want to live with you. Her heart trembled. Draven. He leaned closer, his forehead resting against hers. No more fear, he said softly. No more running. She nodded. Then we face it, together. The next morning, the castle felt different. The curse, though weakened, had grown restless again. Doors creaked open on their own, whispers bled through the corridors, and the air hummed with invisible tension. Lord Aldrin called a council of the remaining nobles. Era was not invited, but she heard their voices from outside the hall. She's bewitched him, Lady Miren spat. Every day she's here, the curse deepens. She saved his life. Aldrin thundered back. By risking her own, Miren countered. Can't you see it? The witch's blood demands balance. When the curse takes her, he'll fall again. Era pressed her ear closer, heart pounding. Aldrin's voice dropped to a low growl. If you raise your hand against her, Miren, I will end you myself. There was silence, then Miren's voice again, cool and venomous. I don't need to touch her. The curse will do my work for me. Era stepped back from the door, chills crawling down her spine. When she returned to Draven's chamber, she found him standing at the window, his face pale and distant. They want you gone, he said quietly. I know, she whispered. They're afraid of what we've become. Maybe they should be. He turned to her then, and for the first time, she saw something fierce in his eyes, not just sorrow, but resolve. Let them be afraid. The curse was born from fear. Let it end in defiance. Before she could respond, lightning flared outside, so bright that the air seemed to shatter. The ground shook violently. Draven grabbed her, pulling her close as the candles blew out. When the thunder faded, the castle was eerily silent again. Era's voice trembled. What was that? Draven stared into the darkness. The curse, he said. It's changing. The next dawn brought no light, only a strange, dull grey that turned the castle's halls into endless shadows. The air was cold, thick with tension. Something was wrong. Era woke to shouting outside her chamber. She threw on her cloak and ran into the corridor. Guards were rushing toward the great hall, their faces pale. She followed, dread coiling in her stomach. Inside, chaos reigned. The nobles had gathered, some shouting, some praying. On the long table at the center lay a broken mirror, its surface cracked into 1,000 jagged pieces that reflected flickering light like blood. What happened? Era demanded. No one answered her. Then Aldrin's voice rose above the noise. Everyone out. The hall emptied until only Era, Aldrin, and Draven remained. The Lord's eyes were grim. The curse has shifted, he said. It's feeding again. Draven frowned. On what? Aldrin hesitated. Fear. Distrust. The same thing that gave it birth. Era stepped closer. Then we stop giving it what it wants. If only it were that simple, Aldrin said. The court blames you, Era. They believe your presence has angered the curse. She froze. And you? I know better, Aldrin said. But they won't listen to reason. They're demanding blood. Draven's expression hardened. They'll touch her over my dead body. That may be what they intend, Aldrin replied quietly. By nightfall, the castle was on the edge of revolt. Torches burned in the courtyards. The nobles, driven by fear, had turned the servants and guards against them. Rumors spread faster than truth, that Era had bewitched the prince, that the curse would consume them all if she lived. Era stood by Draven's bedside as he armed himself, his hand steady despite the trembling walls. "You can't fight them," she said. "They're your people." "They were my people," he said. "Now they're ghosts of a kingdom already dead." She reached for his hand. "If you kill them, the curse wins." He looked at her, eyes shadowed. "Then tell me how to stop it." "By forgiving them," she whispered. "Even if they don't deserve it." He laughed bitterly. "You sound like her." Era frowned. "Seraphine?" He nodded. "She said the same thing once. Forgiveness will end the fire." I didn't believe her then. I don't know if I can believe her now. "Then believe me," she said softly. "If we answer hate with more hate, we'll only repeat what destroyed them." He stared at her for a long moment, then sighed. "You're right." But before either could act, the doors burst open. Soldiers poured in, weapons drawn. Behind them came Lady Myrenne, her face calm and cruel. "By order of the Thorn Council," she announced, "the witch Era Vale is to be taken into custody." Draven stepped in front of her, sword drawn. "You'll have to kill me first." Myrenne smiled faintly. "If that's what it takes." The soldiers hesitated, uncertain, torn between loyalty and fear. Aldrin appeared then, his presence commanding. "Enough." His voice thundered across the hall. "No one touches her." Myrenne turned to him, eyes glinting. "You protect the blood of the witch who damned your family. You're a fool, Aldrin." "Maybe," he said. "But I won't become a murderer again." Myrenne's voice dropped, cold as steel. "Then you leave me no choice." Before anyone could stop her, she raised a silver dagger, the same one used to execute Seraphine a century ago. It burned with unnatural light. Draven lunged forward, disarming her, but in the struggle, the blade slashed across Era's arm. Silver blood splattered across the stone floor, gleaming like moonlight. The air howled. The curse awoke. It hit them like a storm. The windows shattered, black wind roaring through the hall. The torches died. Shadows poured from the cracks in the walls, shapes like ghosts, their faces twisted in pain. Draven grabbed Era, shielding her as the world tore apart around them. "Era, stay with me." She was shaking, her wound glowing bright enough to blind. "It's inside me," she gasped. "I can feel it." A voice, deep and terrible, echoed through the hall. "Betrayal begets betrayal." Myrenne screamed as shadowy hands pulled her into the dark. Her cry was cut short. The air grew still again. Era collapsed, her blood pooling across the floor, seeping into the cracks. Draven dropped beside her, desperate. "No, no, stay with me." Her voice was faint. "Draven, the curse isn't just a spell. It's a memory. A loop that keeps repeating." He held her tight. "Then break it. You're stronger than it." Her eyelids fluttered. "Not alone." Aldrin knelt beside them, his face pale but resolute. "Then none of us will face it alone." Together, they pressed their hands over her wound. Light flared, gold and silver intertwining. The shadows screamed, recoiling, but the pain was unbearable. Era felt her strength draining away, her blood, her warmth, her life. "Stop!" Draven cried. "You'll die." She smiled faintly. Maybe that's what the curse wanted all along, to remind us that love always costs something. The light exploded outward. The hall was filled with blinding brilliance, and then silence. When the glow faded, Era lay still. Draven's tears fell onto her pale cheek. "No," he whispered. "Not again." But as he bent closer, he felt it, her pulse, faint but steady. Her eyes opened, soft and luminous. "It's weaker," she whispered. "We're winning." Draven laughed through tears. "You terrifying woman." She smiled weakly. "You said you'd keep me alive. And I will," he said. "Even if it kills me." Outside, dawn finally broke over Thornvale, bathing the cursed castle in light for the first time in 100 years. But the curse was not gone, only waiting, wounded, watching for its next chance to strike. The sun that rose over Thornvale that morning was crimson. It bled light through torn clouds, painting the valley in hues of war and mourning. From the castle's highest tower, smoke curled upward, carrying with it the scent of ash and fear. The curse had quieted after the night of shadows, but it had not retreated. The silence that followed was thick and waiting, like the stillness before a storm. Era sat by the window of Draven's chamber, her arm wrapped in linen, her skin pale from blood loss. The silver veins under her skin no longer glowed, but neither did they fade entirely. They pulsed faintly, reminding her she was not free. Draven paced the floor restlessly, his movements sharp and impatient. His once soft eyes now carried a flicker of something darker: anger at the curse, at his ancestors, at the gods who demanded such pain in exchange for peace. "You should be resting," Era said, her voice low but firm. "I've rested for 100 years, he said. "I'm done sleeping through curses. You're still healing." He turned toward her. "So are you." "I'm not the one the curse wants," she said quietly. Draven knelt before her, his hand finding hers. "It doesn't matter what it wants. It won't have either of us." For a moment, their gazes locked, and the world outside seemed to still. But before either could speak again, the door opened. Aldrin entered, his face drawn with exhaustion. Behind him stood 2 guards, grim and silent. "The court has decided," he said. Era frowned. "Decided what?" Aldrin hesitated. "They believe the curse will only end if the blood that began it burns again." Draven's eyes narrowed. "They mean to kill her." Aldrin's silence was answer enough. Rage flared through Draven. "You would let them repeat the same sin that damned us?" "I would stop them if I could," Aldrin said. "But the people are terrified. The curse's darkness spreads faster each night. They believe a sacrifice will save them." Era stood. "And if I refuse?" "They'll take you by force," Aldrin said, his voice heavy with shame. "You should run." Draven took her arm. "Then we run together." Era shook her head. "If we run, they'll burn the castle. Innocent people will die. This curse won't end in fire again." Aldrin looked at her with sorrow. "You sound like her." "Seraphine?" He nodded. "She said almost the same thing before they took her." Draven stepped closer, gripping his father's arm. "You will not let them touch her. Do you hear me?" "I can't hold back an entire kingdom, Draven," Aldrin said quietly. "But I can buy you time. Take her to the old chapel. There's a passage under the altar, it leads to the cliffs. Go before the council gathers." Era's voice broke. "And you?" Aldrin gave a small, tired smile. "My place is here. Perhaps it always has been." They fled before sunrise. The castle's corridors, once alive with servants and nobles, were now eerily empty. The air shimmered with the remnants of dark magic. Every torch flickered with blue flame. Draven held Era's hand as they ran through the shadows, her steps unsteady but determined. When they reached the chapel, the air was cold and still. Dust covered the pews, the old stone altar was cracked down the center. Era touched it and shivered. The mark on her wrist glowed faintly in response. "This is where Seraphine cursed them," Draven murmured. "And where she died," Era said. The thought lingered in the air like smoke. Draven brushed his hand over the altar, revealing a hidden seal, a circle carved with runes. "The passage should open here." Before he could activate it, a sound echoed from the doorway, the clatter of armor. Dozens of soldiers filled the chapel, torches blazing. Behind them stood Lady Maren, her gown dark as dried blood, her expression triumphant. "Running from fate, are we?" she sneered. Draven moved in front of Era. "You've done enough harm, Maren." "I've only done what must be done," she said coldly. "Your family's curse will never die while she lives." Era's heart raced. "You think killing me will save you?" "It will save us all," Maren snapped. "The witch's blood will burn, and the curse will end." Draven drew his sword. "Over my dead body." Maren's smile was cruel. "If that's what it takes." The soldiers surged forward. Draven met them with fury, his blade a flash of steel and silver. The air filled with the clang of metal and the scent of smoke. Era pressed her back against the altar, whispering words she didn't understand, ancient syllables that poured from her like instinct. The floor beneath her glowed with silver light. The runes on the stone ignited, spreading across the chapel like veins of fire. Miren froze. What are you doing? Era's voice shook. Ending this. The ground trembled. Fire burst upward from the altar, consuming the torches, devouring the air. Draven dropped his sword and ran to her. Era. She turned toward him, her eyes glowing white. Get out. Not without you. You have to live. The fire climbed higher, licking at the walls, painting everything in gold and crimson. Draven reached her, pulling her into his arms. If you burn, I burn with you. The flames surrounded them, wrapping the lovers in a blinding ring of light. Outside, the castle shuddered. The soldiers fled in terror. Miren screamed as the fire swallowed the doorway. And then, silence. The storm broke. Rain poured from the sky, quenching the fire. The chapel stood in ruins. Amid the ashes, two figures lay motionless, Era and Draven, their hands still entwined. When the rain ceased, Aldrin found them. He knelt beside their bodies, tears falling freely. My children, he whispered. But as his trembling hand brushed Era's cheek, warmth met his skin. Her pulse beat faintly beneath his touch. And beside her, Draven stirred, coughing weakly. Aldrin exhaled a broken laugh. Even the flames can't take you. Era opened her eyes, the world spinning. Did it work? Aldrin looked toward the shattered altar. The runes still glowed faintly, but the oppressive darkness in the air was gone. The curse, he whispered. It's fading. Era turned her head toward Draven. His eyes met hers, full of pain and wonder. You kept your promise, she said softly. He smiled through the soot and tears. So did you. But deep beneath the ruins, a whisper stirred, ancient and hollow. Not yet finished. The days that followed were quiet. The curse's grip had weakened, the shadows that once haunted the halls had thinned to nothing more than mist. The castle stood half-broken, its towers scarred by fire, its people humbled by fear. Aldrin ruled what remained with quiet dignity, but his strength faded fast. He spent long hours in the chapel's ruins, whispering prayers to the woman whose curse had both destroyed and saved his bloodline. Era and Draven recovered slowly. Her burns healed faster than they should have, though silver scars traced her arms like delicate branches. Draven's body mended, but his soul felt heavy. They spent their nights on the balcony of his chamber, watching the sky shift from gold to violet. For the first time in centuries, stars shone over Thornvale. Still, Era could not shake the feeling that something lingered. One evening, she rose from the bed, restless. The mark on her wrist glowed faintly again, a pulse of soft silver that hadn't appeared since the fire. Draven sat up. What is it? She looked out the window. The moon hung larger than she had ever seen, shadowed at its edge. An eclipse, she murmured. The first one in 100 years. Draven's eyes darkened. The night Seraphine died. Era turned to him. Then maybe it's the night she's freed. He stood, pulling on his cloak. We should go to the chapel. The chapel ruins were lit by moonlight. The air shimmered faintly, as if the world itself held its breath. The broken altar still bore faint traces of silver light, glowing brighter as Era approached. Aldrin knelt there already, his head bowed in prayer. He looked up as they entered. You feel it too? Era nodded. She's still here. Aldrin's voice was quiet. This eclipse, it's her window. The last moment her spirit can be called. We must finish it now, before the cycle begins again. Draven helped Era to the altar. The glow intensified, forming a circle of light around them. From the shadows rose a figure, tall, graceful, terrible in beauty. Seraphine. Her presence filled the chapel like wind and music. So, she said softly, my blood wakes me once more. Era's heart pounded. You cursed them. I cursed betrayal, Seraphine said. And found only regret. Draven stepped forward. Then end it. Let us live. Seraphine's eyes met his. You are his son. His mirror. The curse was never meant for you. Then take it back, he said. I cannot, she whispered. It has lived too long. Only forgiveness can kill it. Era swallowed hard. Then forgive him. Forgive them. Seraphine turned to her descendant. And what of you, child? Can you forgive me for the fire that burns in your veins? Era hesitated. I've felt your pain. Your anger. But it isn't mine anymore. Seraphine's gaze softened. Then speak it, and free us all. Era took Draven's hand. Together, they stepped into the circle. She closed her eyes. I forgive you, Seraphine Vale. I forgive the thorn blood. I forgive the fire, the grief, the curse. Let it end. The air trembled. The moonlight poured through the shattered roof, flooding the chapel in silver brilliance. Seraphine's form shimmered, breaking apart into light and tears. My child, her voice whispered, fading, you have done what love never could. The light surged, and with it, the final remnants of the curse burned away. Aldrin cried out as the energy struck him. Draven caught him as he fell. The old lord's eyes glistened with peace. She forgave me, he whispered. After all this time. His hand fell limp. The eclipse above reached its peak, then slowly receded. Era sank to her knees, sobbing. Draven knelt beside her, wrapping his arms around her. It's over, he said softly. It's finally over. She looked up at him through tears. Then what now? He smiled faintly. Now we live. Outside, dawn broke once more, golden and new. The roses in the ruined garden began to bloom again, silver petals glistening beneath the morning sun. And in the still air above them, a whisper lingered, not of curses, but of peace. Forgiveness is the light that outlives fire. The dawn that followed the eclipse was strange. The world seemed hushed, as if every breath waited for something that had yet to settle. The storm clouds that had loomed for generations were gone, but in their place hung an uncanny stillness. Thornvale Castle stood in half-ruin. Its towers were cracked, its walls blackened by centuries of grief. Yet amid the rubble, a single shaft of sunlight pierced through a broken window and landed squarely on Era. She blinked against its brightness, feeling warmth on her face for the first time in what felt like forever. She sat beside Aldrin's resting body. His features were peaceful now, his hands folded over his chest, the faintest hint of a smile on his lips. The curse had stolen so much from him, his love, his family, his time, and in the end, forgiveness had been his only salvation. Draven stood a few feet away, staring out over the valley. His cloak billowed in the cold wind, his hair glinting silver where the light touched it. He looked like the ghost of every king his family had ever buried, beautiful, weary, and alone. He died free, Era said softly. Draven turned. His eyes, though red from tears, were calm. He died forgiven. That's more than most ever get. Era's voice trembled. Do you feel it too? The quiet. He nodded. Yes. Like the whole world exhaled at once. Era brushed her fingers over the altar where Seraphine had appeared. The silver glow that had once burned so fiercely there had vanished, leaving behind faint markings carved into stone runes that told their story. Is it over? She asked. Draven came closer. It feels over. But maybe curses don't vanish, maybe they just sleep, waiting for us to remember. Era looked up at him. And if we forget? Then we repeat it, he said. Silence stretched between them, heavy with both grief and relief. The air smelled of smoke and wildflowers. Somewhere outside, birds began to sing, soft, uncertain, but alive. Draven reached for her hand. We should bury him in the rose garden. Era nodded. He'd like that. Together they carried Aldrin's body down to the garden. The roses that had been blackened by the curse were blooming again, pale silver petals glistening under the sun. They dug the earth beside the broken fountain, where once Aldrin had walked with his son, and laid him to rest. Draven placed his father's ring atop the grave. For the thorn line that ends with peace, he said quietly. Era knelt beside him. And for the veil blood that found forgiveness. When they rose, the wind shifted. A petal from one of the roses broke free and landed gently on Aldrin's grave. It shimmered for a heartbeat, then vanished. Neither spoke for a long time. At last Draven said, "Come with me." He led her back into the castle, to a door hidden behind torn drapes. Beyond it was a small chamber, untouched by time. Dust hung thick in the air, but everything else was pristine, shelves lined with books, a desk with scattered letters, a half-burnt candle that had never been replaced. This was hers, Draven said. Era's heart squeezed. Seraphine's? He nodded. After she was condemned, my ancestor sealed it. No one was allowed to touch a single thing. Era ran her fingers along the desk. The wood felt warm beneath her touch, as though it still remembered its owner. On the wall hung a single painting, Seraphine standing in sunlight, her expression serene. There was no fire in her eyes here, only love. She wasn't a monster, Era whispered. Draven stood behind her. No. Just human. Just hurt. Era turned to him. Like us. He smiled faintly. Then maybe we're both forgiven too. He reached for her hand again, but as their fingers touched, pain shot through her. She gasped, clutching her wrist. The silver veins flared brightly beneath her skin, burning like molten fire. Draven grabbed her. Era. She fell to her knees, the glow spreading up her arm, her chest, her throat. It's still inside me, she cried. The curse, it's not gone, it's in me. Draven pulled her close, holding her trembling body. Look at me. You're stronger than it. You broke it once, you can do it again. I don't know how. He cupped her face in both hands. Forgive yourself. Her breath hitched. What? That's what's left, he said, his voice steady but urgent. You've forgiven everyone else, but not you. You still blame yourself for being its vessel. Let it go, Era. Let yourself live. She sobbed, the pain tearing through her body. I can't. You can. His forehead pressed against hers. Say it. She choked on the words. I forgive. The light flared brighter. The entire chamber trembled. The painting of Seraphine split down the center. Draven held her tighter. Say it, Era, she screamed, voice breaking with both pain and release. I forgive myself. The light exploded outward, bursting through every window of the castle. The shockwave rippled across the valley, scattering birds, bending trees, and filling the sky with dazzling silver. Then, silence. Era collapsed against him, her body limp. The glow faded from her veins. The curse, centuries old, was gone. Completely. Draven held her, shaking. Era, please. She stirred, her eyes fluttering open. Draven. He let out a shuddering breath. You did it. She smiled faintly. No. We did. And for the first time since the curse was spoken, Thornvale was at peace. The morning that followed was soft and golden. Mist curled above the valley, birds sang in the reborn gardens, and sunlight danced on dew-soaked grass. But Era did not see it. She lay in Draven's arms at the edge of the fountain, her skin pale, her breathing faint but steady. She had not woken since the curse's final break. The light had gone from her veins, but so had her strength. Draven had not moved for hours. His cloak was soaked, his hair tangled, but he held her close, whispering her name again and again as though it were a prayer. Era, he murmured. Come back to me. There was no answer. Only the wind. When the sun reached its peak, he stood, lifting her gently. He carried her through the silent halls, past the ruins of the great hall and the shattered throne, until he reached the courtyard gates. He laid her in a carriage prepared by the last of the loyal servants. The valley's path stretched ahead, a road leading far from Thornvale's shadow. Draven pressed a kiss to her forehead. I promised you'd live, he whispered. Even if I couldn't follow. He turned to the driver. Take her east, beyond the mountains. There's a healer in the village of Davenmere. She'll know what to do. The driver hesitated. And you, my lord? Draven looked back at the castle. I have something to finish. The carriage wheels creaked into motion. As it rolled away, Era's hand slipped slightly from the blanket. Her silver scar caught the sunlight, glowing faintly just once, like a heartbeat. Weeks passed. The castle fell silent, but the land beyond began to heal. Grass returned to the scorched hills, rivers ran clear, and farmers spoke of a soft light that blessed their fields at night. In the small village of Davenmere, a young woman awoke one morning to find herself in a simple wooden bed, surrounded by herbs and candles. Her head throbbed. Her throat was dry. She blinked against the light and tried to sit up. "Careful," said an old voice. A woman entered the room, gray-haired, kind-eyed, with hands that smelled of rosemary. "You've been asleep for a long time." The girl frowned. "Where am I?" "Safe," the healer said. "That's all that matters." The girl looked down at her hands. Pale skin. Faint scars like silver threads. "What's my name?" she asked quietly. The healer hesitated. "You don't remember?" The girl shook her head. "No. Just fire. And a voice." "What did it say?" She stared at the ceiling, brow furrowed. "It said, live." The healer smiled softly. "Then that's what you'll do." The girl managed a weak smile. "But I can't live without a name." The healer thought for a moment. "Myra," she said. "It means light after darkness." "Myra," the girl repeated slowly, as though testing the word. "Yes. That feels right." She spent her days tending the herb garden behind the healer's cottage. Her hands remembered how to plant, how to heal small wounds, how to soothe pain with song. Yet her mind was empty of everything before that morning. Sometimes, she dreamed. A castle. A man with silver eyes. A promise whispered in the dark. She always woke with her heart aching and no reason why. One evening, months later, as the sun dipped low behind the mountains, a stranger arrived in the village. He rode a black horse and wore a long coat dusted with travel. His hair was dark, streaked faintly with silver. He carried no weapons, only a single withered rose tied to his belt. The villagers watched as he dismounted and walked toward the healer's cottage. Myra was kneeling in the garden, trimming lavender when she heard footsteps behind her. She turned, startled. The stranger smiled faintly. "I was told someone here can bring dead things back to life." She blinked at the wilted rose he held out. "That depends," she said softly. "Sometimes they just need a little light." Her fingers brushed his as she took the flower. The air between them shifted. She felt something familiar, impossible, a warmth that rippled through her chest like memory. The silver scars on her wrist tingled faintly beneath her sleeve. "What's your name?" she asked, her voice trembling for reasons she didn't understand. He hesitated, then said, "Draven." The name echoed in her heart like an old song. She smiled uncertainly. "You look like someone I used to know." "Maybe you did," he said softly. "Maybe you still do." He reached out, his fingertips brushing the silver line on her wrist. The scar pulsed once, like a heartbeat. Myra's breath caught. "What are you doing?" "Reminding you," he whispered. She looked into his eyes, and for a moment, everything came rushing back. The castle. The curse. The fire. The promise. Tears filled her eyes. "Draven." He smiled, the same gentle curve she remembered even before memory itself. "Took you long enough." She laughed through her tears and stepped into his arms. The sky above them glowed with the last light of dusk. For the first time in centuries, Thornvale's bloodline, both Thorn and Vale, stood free. And as the stars bloomed above, a silver wind swept across the valley, carrying with it the faintest echo of a woman's voice, no longer angry, no longer cursed, only at peace. Love always was the cure. The village of Davenmere was small and quiet, nestled between green hills and a winding river that shone like glass. To most, it was an unremarkable place, the kind where life moved slowly, where the world's tragedies were whispered about but never felt. Yet, for Myra, it had become her whole universe. Months had passed since she'd woken without a past. The villagers had come to know her as the healer's apprentice, kind, gentle, and a little strange. She spoke to plants as though they could hear her, hummed lullabies no one else knew, and sometimes stood beneath the moonlight with tears on her cheeks, though she didn't understand why. The old healer, Elira, never asked about her memories. "Some things are best left lost," she would say. But at night, when the world was quiet, Myra often felt an emptiness she couldn't name. Like part of her heart was still waiting for someone to find it. That someone arrived one evening as the sky turned gold. The villagers first saw him from the road, a lone traveler on horseback, his cloak torn by wind, his posture proud but weary. He dismounted before the healer's gate and tied his horse to the fence. His hands were steady, but his eyes, sharp gray, with a faint gleam of silver, held an ache so deep it silenced anyone who met them. Myra was kneeling in the garden, gathering herbs, when she heard his footsteps. She turned, shielding her eyes from the fading sun. The sight of him made her breath catch, though she didn't know why. "Can I help you?" she asked softly. He hesitated, as if the sound of her voice had struck him like a memory. Then he said, "I was told there's someone here who can bring dying things back to life." Myra smiled faintly. "That depends on what's dying." He reached into his cloak and pulled out a single withered rose. Its petals were brown and brittle, its stem broken near the base. "This," he said. "It's been dead for a long time. But I can't seem to let it go." She took it carefully, her fingers brushing his. The air between them seemed to pulse a small flicker, like the heartbeat of something that had been asleep too long. "I can try," she said. "But I make no promises." He watched her as she knelt by the fountain, dipping the flower into the cool water. "What's your name?" he asked. "Myra," she said without looking up. "Yours?" "Draven." The name made her hand tremble. The water rippled, and for a heartbeat, the reflection in the pool shifted, not her face, but another's. A woman with silver veins under her skin. A castle burning. A man with those same eyes whispering her name. She blinked, and the vision vanished. "Are you all right?" Draven asked, his voice careful, almost fearful. "Yes," she said quickly, though her heart was racing. "Just dizzy." He crouched beside her. "It's all right. Take your time." When she looked at him again, she saw the lines of exhaustion on his face, but also warmth, a kind of tenderness that felt too familiar. "You've been traveling long?" she asked. "Farther than I ever wanted," he said. "I've been looking for someone." "Someone you lost?" He nodded slowly. "Someone I promised to find." Myra dipped the rose deeper into the water. "Then I hope you find them soon." "I already have," he said quietly. She looked up, startled. His gaze met hers, unwavering. For a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. "Draven," she whispered, not knowing why the name felt so heavy in her mouth. He smiled sadly. "You do remember." "I don't," she pressed a hand to her chest. "I don't understand." "You don't have to," he said. "You're here. That's enough." She wanted to pull away, to demand answers, but something stronger than fear kept her still. He reached for her hand, slow and gentle, as though afraid she might vanish if he moved too quickly. His fingers brushed the faint silver scar on her wrist. The scar pulsed once. Myra gasped. Images flashed behind her eyes, fire, moonlight, the echo of her own scream, and a voice whispering, "I'll find you, even beyond death." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "What is happening to me?" Draven's voice trembled. "It's your memory. It's waking." "I don't want it," she said, shaking her head. "Please." He caught her hands, his eyes burning with emotion. "You told me once that love was worth the pain. That we had to finish what we began. You saved me, Era. You saved all of us." At the sound of that name, the world tilted. The wind howled through the trees. The water in the fountain rippled violently, reflecting flashes of fire and silver light. Myra Era collapsed to her knees, clutching her head. "No, I can't." Draven pulled her into his arms, holding her as she trembled. "You can. You already did. You ended the curse." The wind stilled. The air grew quiet again. When Era looked up, her eyes were wet, but her voice was calm. "Then why do I feel like it's still here?" Draven brushed a strand of hair from her face. "Because some curses don't haunt the world. They haunt the heart." Era stared at him, the truth dawning slow and painful. "You waited for me." "I promised I would," he said softly. "As many times as it takes." Her throat tightened. "I don't know if I can remember everything." "Then we'll start again," he said. "Here, where it's peaceful." She looked down at the rose in her hand. Its petals had begun to stir, color seeping back into them, deep crimson spreading where death had once lingered. She smiled through her tears. "You brought me a dead flower. I thought it suited me," he said with a small laugh. "Too stubborn to let go." "Then maybe we both needed saving," she whispered. He nodded. "And maybe this time, we get to live." That night, they walked together through the fields beyond the village. The air was cool, and the moon hung low, painting the world in silver and gold. Draven spoke quietly, telling her pieces of their story, not to force memory upon her, but to share the parts he'd carried alone for too long. "The night the fire took us," he said, "I thought I'd lost you. But even when your name faded from my mind, I could still feel your presence. Every time the wind touched my skin, I thought it was you." Era smiled faintly. "And now? Now the wind feels like home." She leaned her head against his shoulder. "Maybe we were always meant to find each other again." He looked down at her. "Maybe that's what forgiveness truly means, returning, even after everything burns." For a long time, they walked in silence. The stars reflected on the river like a path of light leading into forever. By morning, the whole village knew of the stranger who'd come seeking the healer's apprentice. The children whispered that he was a ghost, come to claim her soul. The elders said it was fate, returning what was once lost. But to Myra, to Era, it didn't matter. She was no longer haunted by the shadows of what had been. She was living what was. And for the first time since the fire, she laughed. The days that followed unfolded like a dream, soft, slow, and golden. The air over Davenmere was filled with the scent of blooming lavender and the hum of bees. The curse that had once poisoned the land was gone. In its place, new life thrived. Era and Draven lived quietly among the villagers. She returned to her herbs and healing, while he helped repair homes and mend tools. At first, the people regarded him with caution, a man of noble bearing, his eyes strange and haunted, but soon they saw his gentleness, and their fear faded into respect. Sometimes, when the nights were clear, they would walk to the edge of the hills where the stars stretched endless above them. Era would bring her lute, though she didn't remember learning how to play. Her fingers moved instinctively across the strings, weaving melodies from memory and dream. Draven would listen, his gaze fixed on her as if trying to memorize every note. "That song," he said one night. "You used to sing it when I slept." She smiled. "Then maybe my heart remembered even when my mind didn't." "Do you regret it?" he asked softly. "What?" "Everything we lost." Era looked at the horizon, the faint glow of dawn rising there. "No," she said. "If it took a curse to bring me here, to this, then maybe it was worth it." Draven reached for her hand. "You always find light in the ashes." "That's because you taught me how," she whispered. Weeks turned into months. The fields flourished. The river grew clear. Travelers spoke of Thornvale as a place reborn, a land of miracles and peace. Yet, sometimes, Era would catch glimpses of silver light at the corner of her vision, a glimmer in the trees, a shimmer across the water. When she told Draven, he only smiled. "She's watching," he said. "Seraphine?" He nodded. "She doesn't haunt us anymore. She guards us." Era smiled softly. "Then let her watch. Maybe she'll finally see what love looks like when it isn't cursed." One evening, as the last light faded, Draven found her by the riverbank. She was barefoot, her reflection shimmering in the water beside his. The air was still, save for the sound of crickets. "Do you ever wonder," she asked, "what comes after this? After all the stories end?" He stepped closer. "I used to. But now I think endings are just doors we walk through together." Era turned to face him. "Then where does this one lead?" He smiled faintly. "Anywhere you want." They stood close enough to feel each other's breath, the space between them humming with quiet warmth. The world around them faded, the river, the stars, the night, until there was only the steady rhythm of two hearts that had refused to stop searching. Era whispered, "Then promise me something. Anything. No more curses. No more fire. Just life. Just us." Draven cupped her face, his thumb brushing the faint scar at her jaw. "I promise. This time, we live." Their lips met, not desperate, not broken, but whole. The kiss carried no magic, no curse-breaking power, only peace. When they parted, Era laughed softly, the sound like wind through silver leaves. Above them, the first stars appeared, bright, unblinking witnesses to a story that had begun in darkness and ended in dawn. Draven reached into his coat and pulled something from his pocket, the rose. Once dead, now blooming, crimson as life itself. He placed it in her hands. For every time we find each other again, he said. Era held it close, smiling through tears. Then we'll never stop. As the moon rose over the valley, its light spilled across Thornvale's distant ruins. The wind moved softly through the broken towers, carrying laughter instead of cries, music instead of mourning. The silver light that once cursed the land shimmered once more, not as chains, but as blessing. High above, in the whispering night, Seraphine's voice lingered one last time, gentle, almost proud. You have undone me, child, and in doing so, set me free. Era closed her eyes, feeling warmth spread through her chest. For the first time, she felt whole, no longer the girl who bled silver, no longer the cursed savior. Just Era. Just loved. Draven took her hand again, his voice low and sure. Shall we go home? She nodded. We already are. And as they walked hand in hand through the silverlit fields, dawn rose once more, not as an ending, but as the second beginning. Did their love steal your heart? Then keep their vow alive, like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss another chapter. Every story I tell is another chance to believe that even in darkness, love finds its way.